The thing about working search and rescue above the Arctic Circle is that you get comfortable with silence. Not the absence of sound. There's always wind, always the groan of ice settling, always your own breath fogging in the headlamp beam. I mean the silence of empty space. Miles of it. The kind that makes you understand why the Inupiat have 47 words for different types of darkness. I'm on my 4th year at the Utkirkvik SAR station. Tonight's a paperwork shift, which means I'm alone in the operations room with 3 thermoses of coffee and a stack of incident reports that need signatures. The heater clicks on every 12 minutes. The radios hiss their white noise lullaby. Outside, it's minus 34 degrees Fahrenheit, and the tundra stretches flat and featureless to the horizon like a frozen ocean. Most people who go missing out here fall into 3 categories. Tourists who underestimate the cold, locals who overestimate their sobriety, and elders who simply walk into the white and don't come back. That last category we don't talk about much. It's cultural. It's complicated. It's not my story to tell. What I can tell you is this. The radios always click at 3:07. Not a transmission. Not interference. Just a single sharp click across all 5 channels simultaneously. Atmospheric pressure, I told myself for the first 2 years. Electromagnetic phenomenon. The aurora does strange things to signals up here. Then last night I checked the station log going back 11 years. Every night, 3:07 exactly. Every single night for over 4,000 consecutive days. That's not atmospheric. That's accounting. And last night after the click, I heard something else. A sound like papers shuffling, like someone flipping through a ledger, running their finger down a column of names. Last night I heard them stop on mine. The call came in at 2:47. I was still staring at the logbook, pen frozen in my hand, when the emergency line lit up. A voice I recognized, Thomas Akpik, a whaling captain from Browerville, speaking fast in a mix of English and Inupiaq. His daughter, 8 years old, Nika. She'd taken the dog sled out to check the nets, despite being told to wait until morning. The lead dog came back alone an hour ago, still in harness, trailing cut traces. I was geared up and on my snowmobile in 6 minutes. Before I cleared the gate, Auntie intercepted me.
That's what everyone calls her. Auntie. She's not my aunt. She's not anyone's aunt specifically, but she's everyone's auntie in the way that matters. 70-something. Worked SAR before there was a formal SAR. Knows the ice like she knows her own pigeon. She does dispatch now, mostly, and watches over the younger officers with the intensity of someone who's already buried too many of us. She stood in front of my snowmobile with one hand raised. You know the rules, Benjamin. I did. Everyone who works out here learns them in the first week, usually delivered as graveyard shift folklore with veterans with frostbite scars and 1,000-yard stares. Rule 1. Don't go out between 3 and 3:14 a.m. unless it's life or death. Rule 2. If you see figures in the distance that don't move like animals or people, don't acknowledge them. Don't look directly at them. Don't call out. They're called walkers, and they're always there, you just can't usually see them. I nodded. It's 2:49. I'll have her back before 3.
She was curled inside a frost heave, a perfect square of uplifted ice, about 4 feet on each side, edges geometrically sharp in a way that natural ice never forms. She wasn't shivering, wasn't crying, just sitting there with her knees drawn up, head down, like she was waiting for a bus. "Nika!" I called, killing the engine and running toward her. "Nika, honey, it's Ben from SAR. Your dad sent me. Are you vert?" She didn't respond. I knelt beside her, pulling off my glove to check her face for frostbite. Her skin was cold, but not frozen. Pupils reactive, breathing steady. She looked up at me with an expression I've never quite been able to describe. Not fear. Not relief. Something closer to resignation. She said you'd come. Who said? That's when I made the mistake. I turned my headlamp to check behind her to see if there was someone else, maybe an older sibling or a lost hiker who'd been sheltering with her. The beam swept across the figure standing directly behind her. Tall. Maybe 8 feet. Impossibly thin. Black against the sky, but somehow darker, like it was absorbing the light rather than reflecting it. No face, no features, just a silhouette that held itself in perfect stillness. Except for its right arm. Its right arm was slightly outstretched, angled down, exactly mirroring my own posture as I held the flashlight. I froze. The walker remained motionless for 3 seconds, 4, 5. Then it tilted its head. Not like an animal cocks its ear to listen, like someone examining an interesting specimen. The gesture was perfectly calibrated, measured, almost curious. It was the exact head tilt I do when I'm assessing an injured hiker's mobility. It was my gesture. I heard my own voice in my head screaming the rules. Don't acknowledge them. Don't look directly at them. Too late. I was staring right into the void where its face should be. The walker held my gaze for another impossible moment.
Then it simply wasn't there. No fade, no movement. Between one heartbeat and the next, the space behind Nika was empty. I grabbed the girl, pulled her onto my back, and ran for the snowmobile. I don't remember the ride back. I remember Nika's small arms around my neck. I remember my speedometer pinned at 47 miles per hour across terrain I normally take at 15. I remember the station lights appearing in the distance like a miracle. I remember checking my watch as we crossed the gate. 03:13. Nika was fine. Mild exposure, no frostbite, no injuries. Dehydrated but alert. The clinic kept her for observation, and she was released to her parents that morning with a clean bill of health. I was a hero. Thomas Ackpick shook my hand so hard I thought he'd dislocate my shoulder. The station chief wrote me up for a commendation. Someone brought donuts. Auntie pulled me into the supply room and closed the door. You looked at it. It wasn't a question. I nodded. She closed her eyes for a long moment. When she opened them, they were wet. You saved the girl. That's good. That's what you should have done. But you need to understand what happens now. She sat down heavily on a crate of emergency flares. The walkers, they're not ghosts. They're not demons. They're auditors. The tundra takes people, Benjamin. That's just what it does. Has for hundreds of years. But there are rules. Balance. When someone goes missing, their name goes in the ledger. The walkers come to collect. Collect what? The debt. The space they took up. The warmth they borrowed from the world. My grandmother tried to explain it once. The words don't translate right. She rubbed her face. Point is, Nika's name was in that ledger. You found her alive. You brought her back. So the debt is closed. That's good. No. Her voice was flat. The debt doesn't disappear. You looked directly at a walker. You acknowledged it. By doing that, you accepted the transfer. Someone still has to pay. The ledger needs a name. My stomach dropped.
Now, it's yours. She stood up, pulled me to my feet, looked me hard in the eyes. You have 7 shifts. When the clock hits 03:7, 7 nights from now, the walkers come for you. Unless you balance the ledger another way. What way? A missing person call will come in. You find them, alive, and then you transfer the debt. The case closes clean, your slate is wiped, and you walk away a free man. A cold void opened in my stomach. That can't be true. It is. Your name leaves the book. Another one takes its place. The horror of it locked my jaw. When I could finally speak, the words were a whisper. You're telling me I have to condemn an innocent? Her expression didn't change. I'm telling you the rules. What you do with them is between you and the ice. She left me in the supply room with my thoughts and the distant hum of the refrigeration unit. 7 shifts. 6 days. By the end of the week, I either save a life or sacrifice one. The worst part? I'm already thinking about the math. The next night, I drew solo patrol. Routine sweep of the lake road, checking the ice fishing shelters, making sure no one's passed out drunk in their truck. Quiet shift. Empty tundra. The aurora was out, painting the sky in sheets of green and violet. At 03:07, the radio clicked. Then the ice beneath my snowmobile vanished. Not broke through, vanished. A perfect square, 8 feet on each side, opened directly under me. I killed the engine and threw myself sideways, rolling onto solid ice as the machine teetered on the edge. The hole wasn't filled with water. It was filled with nothing. An elevator shaft of absolute black, dropping into a depth I couldn't measure. The aurora light hit the edge and just stopped. Then something climbed out. The walker rose from the shaft like smoke taking shape, but this time it wasn't a featureless silhouette. It was wearing my SAR coat. The same model, same color, same wear pattern on the left elbow where I lean on the truck door. My name patch was stitched on the breast, Harper B, but the letters were backwards, mirror flipped. It stood on the ice and shifted its weight to one hip, a tired stance I fall into at the end of long shifts. Then it opened its mouth. The first sound was static, like a radio stuck between channels. A dry, crackling exhalation that might have been an attempted breath. It stopped, tilted its head, my head tilt, that same analytical gesture, and tried again. The second sound was closer, a rasp that almost had syllables, almost had tone. It was trying to learn my voice. I pulled my flare gun with shaking hands and fired directly into its chest. The flare entered the dark coat and kept going. No impact, no light, no sound, like throwing a stone into a bottomless well. The bright red phosphorus just disappeared into that infinite black. The walker looked down at the entry point, then back at me. It tilted its head again. This time I recognized the gesture from the inside. That's what I look like when I'm sizing someone up, when I'm deciding if a hiker can make it another mile, or if a victim's story adds up, or if someone's dangerous. It was learning how I think. Then it stepped backward into the shaft. The square of missing ice sealed over in an instant, smooth and perfect, like it had never been broken. I sat there for 5 minutes before I could move. I owed them a debt. Night 3. The headache started on night 2. Now it is something else. A thick, solid pressure behind my eyes, pulsing in time with my heartbeat. It feels less like a headache and more like my skull is trying to unmake itself from the inside. I was at my desk, staring at an incident report until the letters bled together when Nika's father shouldered his way into the station. His daughter, Nika, was a silent shadow behind him, her small face far too serious. Harper, heaving the cooler onto the break room table with a wet thud. 40 pounds of silver salmon for saving my girl. I stood, the motion sending a fresh, hot spike through my temples. That is too much. I was just doing my job. My objection died as Nika's voice, small but impossibly clear, cut through the station's low hum. Auntie showed me where to wait. She said someone would come before the bad thing did. Then the studio went silent. One moment, there was the familiar clutter of noise. Chief Morrison's low chuckle, the clack of Dale's keyboard, the static hiss of the radio. The next, there was nothing. It was as if a glass bell had dropped over the entire room. Morrison was frozen, his coffee cup an inch from his lips. Dale had his hand hovering over his mouse, his fingers poised but unmoving. The radio static did not just go quiet. The absence of it was a physical weight in the air. My gaze dropped to Nika. Her dark eyes were fixed on me, and they held a knowledge that had no business in the face of an 8-year-old. They were ancient and terrified. A full 3 seconds passed. The pressure in my head tightened. Then the world rushed back in, too loud and too fast. Morrison let out a sharp, forced laugh. "Nika, honey, you know Auntie. She is everyone's friend. She was probably just praying for you is all." He took a sip of his coffee. "Right." Dale chimed in, his voice a notch too high. He clicked his mouse with unnecessary force. "Kid, Auntie's got a sixth sense about these things, like a guardian angel." He laid a heavy hand on his daughter's head, his smile tight. "Do not go giving the officer your wild stories, Inuk." But Nika did not look away from me. She did not even blink. "Have you seen her since that night?" The silence returned, but this time it felt deliberate, a solid wall. "Hey," I said, my voice sounding too loud. No one turned. I forced a clucker. "Morrison, Dale?" I waved a hand in front of the chief's face. His eyes didn't flicker. He took another sip of coffee, staring right through me. My
Chuckle died in my throat. The truth, cold and absolute, settled in my gut. Nika was the only one who could see me. The throbbing in my skull intensified, a sudden, vicious twist. "I see her all the time," I managed, my voice rough. "She helps with dispatch once in a while, Nika." "No." Her voice was flat, certain, a verdict. "Have you really looked at her? I mean, truly looked? Once you do, you will know what I mean." He was already pulling her toward the door, his apologies trailing behind him. "Kids and their imaginations, you know how it is. Thanks again for everything, Harper." The door clicked shut. Instantly, the station snapped back to life. The clatter of keyboards, the murmur of conversation, the rustle of paperwork. It was all there, but it was wrong. It was like watching a film where the audio is out of sync. A hollow performance, and I was the only one who had missed their cue. I stood, rooted to the spot, staring at the dark plastic cooler beaded with cold water. And a cold, solid thought
formed in my mind, cutting through the pain. What does Auntie look like? I see her every day. I take my coffee when she tells me to. I nod at her updates over the radio. But I cannot, for the life of me, summon a single specific detail of her face. Not the curve of her smile, not the shape of her hands, not the way she moves through a room. It is all just a pleasant blur. I spend my lunch break in the basement archives. Down here, the world is reduced to the grit of dust on my fingertips and the dry whisper of turning pages. When my phone lights up with my wife's call, I watch the screen go dark. Everything else can wait. Everything else is noise. The station's records go back to 1962, when the formal SAR program was established. Before that, it's just scattered reports in the municipal building's library annex. I start with recent files. Pull Auntie's employment records from 2020. There she is. Photo ID clipped to a W-2. Same Auntie. Gray hair pulled back. Reading glasses on a beaded chain. Warm smile. Date of birth, March 15, 1960. Another form, employee health insurance enrollment. Same photo. Maybe a few less wrinkles. Date of birth, March 15, 1960. Pension paperwork.
Date of birth, March 15th, 1960. Original hiring documentation. The photo is slightly faded, but it's her. Same face, same smile. Date of birth, March 15th, 1960. I flip back and forth between the photos. The lighting is different. The backgrounds change, but her face stays exactly the same age in every single image across 30 years. The headache is an ice pick now, driving into my frontal lobe with every heartbeat. I drive to the library and request historical records, search and rescue reports, anything from the region. The librarian, an elder named Margaret, peers at me over her glasses. That's quite a project. What are you hoping to find? I just need to understand the history, I say, my voice tight. My phone buzzes in my pocket, again. I know it's her. I know I'm stressing her out, but the thought is a distant thing, drowned out by the static in my head. I have days, maybe less. This takes precedence. Everything takes precedence. She brings me photo albums, community newsletters, newspaper clippings. 1956. A group photo volunteers after a successful rescue. In the back row, partially obscured, Auntie. Same gray hair, same glasses. 1968. A dedication ceremony for the new station. In the crowd, Auntie. 1987, a wartime civil defense meeting. The photo is grainy, black and white, but I can make out her silhouette in the second row. Margaret leans in to look, her pleasant librarian smile still in place. It doesn't waver as her eyes track Auntie's face across the decades. She doesn't startle her question. She simply nods, as if confirming a known fact. That's Auntie in all of them, isn't it? She murmurs. Funny how some folks just have that timeless quality. My mouth is dry. How old is she? Oh, you know elders. Margaret pats my shoulder, her touch making me flinch. Why do you want to know? Because it doesn't make sense. The words scream inside my skull. Because I want to hold these photos side by side and force you to see that the same woman is in a photo from 1952 and a report from last year.
because everyone is blind when they look at her. Instead, I say, just curious.
Margaret's smile doesn't reach her eyes. Curiosity is good, Ben. But some things out here, they don't want to be understood. They just want to be. She walks away before I can ask what that means. I make it home at 6 p.m. with the headache drilling so deep I'm seeing halos around every light source. Sarah's waiting in the kitchen, arms crossed. Jaw set in that way means we're about to have the same fight we've been having for 3 months. You missed dinner again. I was working. You're always working. She's crying now, angry tears. When you're here, you're not here, Ben. You're somewhere else, with her. With who? Denise, the secretary. Don't play stupid. Everyone at the station talks. Sarah, I'm not... Then where were you today? Dale saw you in the archives for 2 hours. Said you looked like you were researching something intense. What were you researching, Ben? I don't have a good answer. Can't explain that I was looking up photos of a 70-something dispatch operator who apparently hasn't aged since World War II. Can't explain that an 8-year-old girl warned me about a woman who's hypnotized the goddamn town. Can't explain any of it without sounding insane. So I say nothing. Margaret's face crumples. Get out. Sarah, get out! Go stay with whoever you've been running to. I don't care anymore. She's shoving my jacket at me, pushing me toward the door. I grab my keys off the hook and stumble into the cold without a plan. I sit in my truck in the driveway, engine running, heat blasting. The station has a bunk room, but Dale is probably there. I have no friends in this town, not really. Just co-workers and acquaintances. I could drive to Fairbanks, get a hotel, clear my head. Instead, I put the truck in reverse, and that is when I see it.
A warm, golden light spills from the kitchen window. The silhouette of my wife moves past the sink. Then the sound hits me. It is not the quiet I left, but the vibrant noise of a family meal. The clatter of plates, my son's high-pitched story, my daughter's giggling interruption. And underneath it all, a man's easy, resonant laugh. My laugh. I kill the engine and step out into the freezing air, drawn to the window like a ghost. I peer inside. There they are. Sarah, the kids, and me. They're gathered around the table. The man at the head of the table leans back in his chair, a wide, relaxed smile on his face. It is an expression I have not worn in years. He says something and Sarah laughs, her real, unforced laugh, and reaches out to squeeze his arm. I am running before I know I have moved. Up the porch steps, through the door, which is unlocked. The sounds and smells of dinner, pot roast, my favorite, wash over me. I stand frozen in the hallway entrance, watching this perfect imitation of my life. Get out, I whisper. The words have no force. The man, the other me, turns his head. His eyes meet mine across the room, and he smiles, a slow, knowing smile. The room shifts. Suddenly, I am the one sitting at the head of the table. The taste of pot roast is in my mouth. My daughter tugs on my sleeve, and Sarah smiles at me from across the table. I try to stand, to scream, but my body is a puppet. I hear my own voice, but it is not mine, say, "This is perfect." My eyes dart to the dark glass of the patio door.
In the reflection, I see it. Standing in the corner of the kitchen, watching. The walker. It wears my SAR coat. Its face, a smudged photograph. It tilts its head, and my reflection in the glass mimics the gesture. Sarah's smile becomes fixed, her gaze intensifying. "We are so glad you are finally here, Ben," she says, her voice syrupy and wrong. "Stay with us." I throw myself backward, the chair clattering to the floor. I scramble on hands and knees toward the front door as their voices rise in a harmonious, desperate chorus. "Ben, do not go! Ben, we love you! Ben, your dinner is getting cold!" I stumble into the truck, slam the locks, and force myself to look back. They are all at the kitchen window now, Sarah and the kids. They stand in a row, staring out at me with identical, placid, vacant smiles. The drive to Auntie's cabin is a blur. My body operating on autopilot, my mind can no longer sustain. By the time I park, the clock reads 9 p.m. The headache is no longer just pain. It has begun to feel like static. A soft glow came from inside her cabin. I staggered to the door, my legs unsteady. It swung inward before my fist could connect. And there, standing in the threshold, I finally saw her. The flush in her cheeks is wrong, too red, like old meat. Her body is too thin beneath her house dress, bones pressing against skin that's lost its elasticity. When she smiles, her lips pull back too far, showing too many teeth. "Benjamin?" Her voice is the same warm rasp. "Are you all right?" I try to run, try to get back to the truck, but she's there, hand on my shoulder, impossibly fast. "Shh, child, come inside. You're seeing things, aren't you? The walkers do that. They get in your head, make you doubt what's real." She guides me toward the door with surprising strength. "Come have tea. We'll talk." I don't want to go inside, but the headache is so bad I can barely stand, and her cabin is warm, and she's the only person who's acknowledged that any of this is happening. I followed her inside, the door closing behind me with a soft, final click. The cabin felt smaller than I remembered, and darker, as if the walls had crept inward to swallow the light. I noticed the shadows in the corners didn't behave properly, stretching and pooling in defiance of the single oil lamp that burned on the counter. Without a word, Auntie guided me to her kitchen table, her hand on my arm as she directed me into a chair. She moved to the stove to put a kettle on, her motions possessing a fluid, unnerving grace that belonged to someone decades younger. "You're on night 3, she says. Not a question. That's the middle point. That's when it gets worst. Your mind is trying to bridge two states of being, warm and cold, living and..." She trails off, pours tea into mismatched mugs. I wrap my hands around the mug. The ceramic is cold, despite the steaming liquid inside. Why is this happening to me? My voice sounds distant. "Because you looked." She sits across from me. "And because you saved the girl." "Nika." "Yes." Something flickers across Auntie's face. Almost regret. Almost. What does that mean? She sips her tea. "Would you like to hear a story? An old one, about the ocean, and sacrifice, and the price of living too long?" I nod because I don't know what else to do, because the cabin feels like it's pressing down on me, because I can feel something in the corners, waiting. Auntie's voice drops to a storyteller's cadence. There was once a woman who refused to marry. Her father tried everything, arranged matches with strong hunters, wealthy traders, even shamans, but she refused them all. She had no interest in men. The tea tastes like seawater. One winter, she fell in love with her dog, a beautiful animal, strong and loyal. They say she loved it more than anything human. When her father discovered this, he was filled with shame. He took her out in his kayak, far from shore, and threw her into the ice water to drown. I want to put down the mug, but my hands won't move. She tried to climb back into the kayak, grabbed the gunwale, begged her father to pull her up, but he took his ulu and cut off her fingers one by one. Each finger that fell into the water became something new. Seals, whales, all the creatures of the deep, and the woman herself sank down to become Sedna, the mother of the sea, the keeper of drowned things. Auntie's voice has changed, become layered, like multiple people speaking in unison. But here's the part they don't tell children. Sedna didn't just become a goddess. She became hungry. Every finger she lost was a piece of warmth taken from the living world. And to keep existing, to keep her place in the deep, she needs to replace that warmth again and again, forever. My vision is tunneling. The cabin walls seem to breathe. We all make choices, Benjamin. Some of us choose to drown. Some of us choose to cut the fingers. Some of us, she leans forward and her face is changing, cheeks hollowing further, skin pulling tight against skull. Some of us choose to feed. In the window behind her, I see them. Walkers, 3 of them, standing perfectly still, watching. I try to stand, but my legs are numb. Try to speak, but my tongue is thick. Auntie reaches across the table, touches my hand with her cold hands. I'm sorry, Benjamin, but you understand, don't you? A child's life buys more than an adult's, more years, more warmth. But you saved her. You broke the equation. So now I need yours. She is holding a curved knife with a bone handle. I try to move, but my body is leaden, and a cold understanding dawns. I know what she has put in my drink. It won't hurt. The cold comes fast at this stage. You'll just stop, and I'll have 17 more winters. Maybe less. I'm not as young as I used to be. Though I suppose 7 centuries is a good run. The walkers in the window are inside now, standing behind my chair. I can feel them, radiating cold. Auntie raises the knife, and in that suspended moment, a fractured memory crashes over me. It comes in a flash. A woman is screaming, running desperately through deep snow with a mob at her heels. Their torches cutting through the darkness as voices shout, "Witch, demon, unclean." She stumbles and falls, and someone catches her, holding her down, while another brings the ulu to her face. The blade cuts from cheek to jaw, and she is screaming a name over and over in a desperate pleading mantra, "Akna, Akna, Akna." I shout the name without thinking, a raw cry that tears from my throat. Akna! The effect is instantaneous. Auntie recoils as if I'd struck her, and the knife clatters to the floor. Light pours through the window. Not moonlight, not aurora, something older. It illuminates Auntie in harsh relief, and I see what she truly is. The centuries of borrowed time written in the spaces between her cells. the hollow where her humanity used to be, the scar on her cheek that never healed. The walkers behind me scatter, simply cease to exist, like smoke and wind. Auntie, Acna, crouches away from the light, making sounds that aren't quite words. It's giving me a chance. I run. I burst out the door and into the suffocating snow, my truck keys already clutched in my hand as if they had materialized there. The engine roared to life on the first try. A miracle or some other form of interference. I didn't know and I didn't care. It wasn't until I was half a mile down the road, the tires crunching on the packed snow, that I dared to glance into the rearview mirror. Her cabin sat dark and silent, a solitary stain against the vast white expanse. But in the single window, I could see her, a stark silhouette standing perfectly still, watching me flee. She was waiting. Night 4. The station feels wrong in a way I can't articulate. The fluorescent lights hum at a frequency that makes my teeth ache. The coffee tastes like copper. When I walked in for my shift, Morrison looked up from his desk, smiled, and went back to his paperwork without saying a word.
Unusual. Except Morrison always asks about the weather. Always. For 3 years, every single shift. How's it looking out there, Harper? Today, nothing. Dale's at his desk, typing with mechanical precision. His posture is too straight, his movements too measured. I tried to talk to him when I came in, asked him if he wanted to grab lunch later. He looked at me with eyes that didn't quite focus and said, "I don't know you." Then he went back to typing. The headache is constant now. A thick, pulsing pressure behind my eyes that makes the edges of my vision blur. When I blink, I sometimes see after images of things that aren't there. A tall figure standing in the corner, a hand reaching for my shoulder, the shape of someone's face pressed against the window, watching. I've been staring at the same incident report for 20 minutes. The words keep sliding off the page. At 14:37, my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but the area code was local. I almost didn't answer. My hand was shaking when I picked up. "Harper?" The voice was tight with fear. "Thomas Ockpick. I need to talk to you. Not at the station. Can you meet me?" "Thomas, what's wrong?" "Not on the phone." His breathing was ragged. "The old fish camp, north of town. The one by Otter Creek. You know it?" I did. Abandoned for years. Just a few rotting shacks on the ice. "I'll be there in 30 minutes. Come alone," he said. Then, quieter. "I'm being followed." The line went dead. I grabbed my coat and keys. Auntie was at the dispatch desk when I passed, her fingers moving across the keyboard with that same unnatural fluidity. She looked up as I walked by, her smile too wide, showing too many teeth. "Going somewhere, dear?" "Routine patrol." "In the middle of your shift?" Her head tilted, just slightly. The same angle the walker had used. "You should rest, Benjamin. You look so tired." "I'm fine."
I don't have a daughter. The words were flat, automatic. I have a son, Tobias. He's 6. No, you came to the station. You brought me fish. You said... I've never been to the station. I don't know what you're talking about. Thomas, please. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through photos. I had to have something, some proof. But when I got to the night of the rescue, there was nothing. Just a gap in the timeline. Photos from 02:45, then nothing until 04:23. You called me 20 minutes ago. You said you were being followed. I called you because it's getting worse. His voice dropped to a whisper. The shadow. It's getting closer. Last night, it stood at my bedroom window. I could see the outline against the glass, and Benjamin,
He looked at me with naked terror. It was wearing your coat. The cold suddenly felt colder. What? What are you talking about? Your SAR coat. I could see the patch. Your name, Harper B. But the letters were backwards. He was shaking now. What did you do? What did you bring back with you? I saved a little girl, I said, my voice low and steady. Your daughter. I don't have a daughter. The scream tore from him as he fumbled for his car door handle, his eyes wide with pure terror. I've never had a daughter. Get away from me. He pushed my hand away. He got into the car and shut the door. The engine started. He drove off down the street. The taillights shrank in the dark and then were gone. I took a step forward, a plea on my lips, but a hand fell on my shoulder, its grip firm and final. I turned. Dale was standing there, smiling, that same warm, vacant smile I'd seen on my family, on Morrison, on everyone. Hey, Ben! His voice was too loud, too cheerful. What are you doing all the way out here? Dale? My heart was hammering. When did you... I was checking the nets, caught some nice char today. He gestured toward the third shack. Want to see? His shadow was wrong. The sun was low, casting long shadows across the snow. Mine stretched out beside me, a normal human silhouette. But Dale's was too tall, too thin, stretching back toward the shack in a shape that didn't match his body. Dale, I said slowly, I think you should step back. Why? The same bright smile. I'm just here to help. You don't fish, Dale. You're a vegetarian. You've told me 1,000 times. The smile didn't falter. Of course I fish. I've been fishing here for years. No, you haven't. For a moment, nothing moved. The wind died. Even the creaking of the shack fell silent. Dale stood perfectly still, that smile frozen on his face like a photograph. Then his head tilted, slowly, mechanically, the exact angle the walker had used. You should go home, Benjamin, he said. The voice was still Dale's, but underneath was something else, something that sounded like wind through empty buildings. That's not my family, isn't it? The head tilted further, past any natural range of motion. Sarah's making dinner. The kids are doing homework. Everything is exactly as it should be. You're the one who's wrong. You're the one who doesn't fit. Behind him, the shadow elongated, stretched. The sunlight seemed to bend around it, creating a void in the shape of a person. I reached for my service weapon, but my hand was shaking too badly to draw it. Dale, if you're still in there, I'm fine. Better than fine. I don't have that headache anymore. I don't have those nightmares. I'm not afraid. The smile widened. You could be like this too, Benjamin. No more pain, no more fear, just peace. That's not peace. That's nothing. The thing wearing Dale's face took a step closer. In the direct sunlight, I could finally see what Thomas had seen. The skin wasn't quite right. Too smooth. Too uniform. Like someone had painted over a surface that was never meant to hold paint. And underneath, where the shadow met the snow, there was no texture, no depth, just a flat, absolute black. I grabbed the flashlight from my belt and shined it directly at Dale's face. For a fraction of a second, the light passed through him. I could see the shack behind, the gray wood visible through his chest like he was made of smoke. Then he solidified again, but the smile was gone. His face had gone slack, features settling into something smooth and featureless. The mouth was too wide. The eyes were too far apart.
You looked, it said, in a voice that was no longer Dale's.
Rule 2. You're not supposed to look. It's 2 in the afternoon. The rules only apply after 3 a.m. The thing that wasn't Dale laughed. It was a sound like ice cracking on a frozen lake. The rules changed, Benjamin. When you took the debt, you changed them. Now we can come any time, anywhere, as long as the ledger needs balancing. Behind it, more figures were emerging from the shacks. Tall, impossibly thin, their shapes cutting sharp silhouettes against the white expanse. But these weren't shadows. These were people. The man from the third shack, a woman in a parka, an elder with a walking stick. All of them smiling with that same vacant expression. All of them moving with that same fluid, unnatural grace. Dale, I tried one more time. Dale, I know you're in there. You showed me the photo. You remember Nika. You remember the rules. For just a moment, something flickered behind those two wide eyes. A spasm of recognition. Fear. I looked, Dale whispered. His voice suddenly his own again. Oh God, I looked right at it. It was wearing my mother's necklace, the one I buried her with. I saw it and I looked, and now... His eyes snapped back to that placid blankness. The flicker was gone. Dale zones out sometimes, the thing said in that layered, wrong voice. He'll be fine. He'll be better. He'll be balanced. Dale turned away from me, his movement suddenly jerky and mechanical. He walked back toward the shacks with rigid, upright posture, not looking back. I ran from my truck. The walkers didn't follow. They just stood there, a line of figures against the white, watching as I fumbled with my keys, as I gunned the engine, as I fishtailed away from the camp. In my rearview mirror, I saw Dale get into his truck. He sat perfectly still, hands at 10 and 2, staring straight ahead. Then he drove away in the opposite direction. I made it back to town by 16:30. The sun was already setting, painting the sky in shades of bruised purple. I didn't go to the station. I went to the library instead. Margaret was at the front desk, stamping books with metronomic precision. When she saw me, her face lit up with that same too wide smile. Benjamin, how lovely to see you. I need to see the old SAR records again, from 1956. Of course, dear. She stood up with impossible fluidity. Right this way. She led me to the basement. The stairs creaked under our feet. The lights flickered. You know, she said conversationally, I've been thinking about our last conversation. About Auntie. What about her? You asked how old she was. Margaret stopped at the bottom of the stairs, turning to face me. In the dim light, I could see that her shadow was too long, stretching back up the stairs in a shape that didn't match her body. Margaret, when did you start working here? Oh, I've been here for years. How many years? Her smile didn't waver. Does it matter? I pushed past her into the archives. The boxes were where I'd left them 4 days ago, but when I opened them, the photos were different. The group photo from 1956, the one with Auntie in the back row, she was gone. Just a gap where she should have been. The people on either side standing slightly too far apart. The dedication ceremony from 1968, no Auntie. The wartime civil defense meeting, no Auntie. I went through every box, every file, every photograph. She'd been erased. removed from the record like she never existed. Except for one photo. At the bottom of the last box, tucked into an unmarked envelope, was a single black and white photograph. It was old, the paper yellowed and brittle. The date on the back read February 3rd. She looked exactly the same. Same gray hair, same smile. The caption on the back was in Russian, but someone had translated it in faded pencil. The witch Okna receives her mark. May God have mercy on her soul. I heard footsteps on the stairs. I shoved the photo in my pocket and turned. Margaret was standing in the doorway, backlit by the stairwell lights. Her silhouette was too tall, too thin.
"Find what you were looking for?" she asked. I didn't answer. I pushed past her and ran up the stairs. Behind me, I heard her laugh, just like Okna. "A few more shifts left, Benjamin," she called after me. "The ledger is almost balanced." I burst out into the cold evening air and ran for my truck. The streets were empty. The windows of the houses glowed with warm light. Families gathered for dinner. Everything normal and perfect and wrong. My radio crackled to life. "Unit 7, this is dispatch." Auntie's voice. Calm, professional. "We have a welfare check at 342 Maple Street. Requesting your response." 342 Maple Street, my house. "Negative," I said into the radio. "I'm off duty." "Benjamin." Her voice dropped, becoming intimate, threatening. "Your family is waiting for you. Sarah made pot roast, your favorite. Don't you want to go home?" I looked up at my rearview mirror. She was sitting in my back seat. Not a reflection, not a shadow. Auntie herself, flesh and blood and impossibly there, her hands folded in her lap, that patient smile on her face. "You can't run from this," she said softly. "The debt doesn't disappear just because you're afraid. It follows you. It waits. And when the ledger finally balances, you'll be grateful for the peace." I threw open my door and fell out into the snow. When I looked back, the truck was empty, but I could still hear her voice carried on the wind. "Few shifts left, Benjamin. Then you'll understand. Then you'll stop fighting. Then you'll be accounted."